The wind howled through the canyon's jagged teeth, carrying the scent of sulfur and rust. Jax adjusted the copper-plated fingers of his prosthetic arm, the hydraulic pistons whining softly as he tightened his grip on the rail of the rusted catwalk. Below him, the techno springs churned, a vast, bubbling cauldron of mineral rich water, its surface shimmering with the distorted reflections of the city above. The springs weren't just a natural wonder, they were the city's lifeblood. Their geothermal heat filtered through high tech siphons, powering the Ironclad servers. If the flow ever stuttered, the city's digital heart would fry under the desert sun. Jax's headset crackled, pressures spiking at the ramming gate. His pulse quickened. The ramming gate wasn't just an entrance to the city's lower districts, it was a choke point, a bottleneck where the techno springs, mineral rich waters, were siphoned off to cool the Ironclad's servers. If the pressure dropped, the servers would overheat. If the pressure rose, the gates would fail and the entire district would flood with scalding water. Mara's voice came through, muffled by the waterproof rubber shielding her neural jack. I'm in the pools now. The water's different, thicker, like it's carrying something. Jax frowned. Like what? Metal shards, glass. And is that oil? A chill ran down his spine. The techno springs were supposed to be pure, filtered by the city's oldest geothermal siphons, their mineral content carefully balanced. Anything else meant contamination. And contamination meant sabotage. It took a deep breath, the desert air sharp in his lungs. The Ironclad servers were already humming, their cooling systems straining against the heat. If the water stopped flowing, the city's digital heart would fry. If the water was poisoned, the city's digital heart would corrode from within. Jax adjusted his respirator and stepped onto the rickety bridge that led to the ramen gate. Below him, the city sprawled in a chaotic mosaic of neon and rust. The Derset Neon District glowed with the sickly green light of algae farms, their vats bubbling with bioengineered life. The Ironclad servers hummed in the shadows of the NM cyberpunk district, their cooling towers venting steam into the twilight. The trading post buzzed with the chatter of scavengers, their carts piled high with scavengers' tech and the occasional stolen server core. But the ramming gate was the heart of it all, the entry point to the techno springs, the gateway to the city's cooling system. And if it failed, the entire city would go dark. Jax reached the gate just as the first alarm blared. The pressure gauge flickered wildly, then plummeted. The siphons groaned, their metal ribs twisting under the strain. Water surged through the pipes, but it wasn't the clear, mineral-rich flow it should have been. It was thick, dark, and lathed with something metallic. Mara's voice crackled again, urgent. Jax, the water's carrying debris. Someone's tampering with the siphons. It didn't need to be told twice. He lunged for the manual override, his prosthetic fingers fumbling with the rusted wheel. The gates shuddered. then groaned open, releasing a torrent of contaminated water into the lower districts. The trading post's stalls flooded instantly, their owners cursing as their wares floated away. The desert neon district's algae vats hissed as the contaminated water seeped in, their green glow dimming to a sickly brown. Jack's headset crackled again. This time, it wasn't Mara. You're too late. The voice was distorted, but the menace was clear. A glitch in the audio, a stutter in the transmission. It was a signature of the Iron Clan's rivals, the Desert Neon Syndicate. We're not letting you ruin our plans, the voice hissed. The city's heart is ours now. Jax's blood ran cold. The Iron Clan's servers weren't just cooling the city, they were the city's digital heart. And the Desert Neon Syndicate was about to pull the plug. He had to act fast. The Techno Springs were still contaminated, the Ramen Gate was flooded, and the Desert Neon Syndicate was already inside the city systems. If he didn't stop them, Rustlight Ridge would go dark forever. The neon glow of the trading post flickered like a dying star, casting long shadows over the cobbled streets where the air smelled of ozone and roasted chilies. A merchant stall groaned under the weight of solar charged batteries, their surfaces pitted and scarred from too many dust storms. Beside them, bundles of dried sage swayed in the dry wind, their earthy scent a stark contrast to the metallic tang of the tech, the merchant. A wiry woman with a scar running from her temple to her jawline haggled in rapid fire Spanish and Mandarin. Her fingers deftly swapping a water filtration chip for a box of ammunition. You want the good stuff? She spat, tossing the chip into the palm of a grizzled scavenger. Then you bring me something worth more than scrap. The Desert Net doesn't run on goodwill. The scavenger, his face half hidden beneath a tattered respirator, grunted and slung the chip into a pouch at his hip. It seen the towers humming with life higher up, where the air was cooler and the Desert Net's signals barely reached. Down here, near the springs, the water was still potable if you boiled it first, and the heat was bearable, but only just. The social hierarchy of Rust Light Ridge was written in the distance from the water. At the heart of the city, the Techno Springs district pulsed with life. The air was cool, filtered through ancient aqueducts that snaked through the city like veins. Homes were carved into the rock, their walls lined with solar panels that drank in the sun's last rays before the long night. The closer you lived to the springs, the more stable your connection to the Desert Net, the city's flickering, ever-changing pulse of data. The wealthy lived in the lower levels, where the spring's mist kept the air damp and the heat at bay. They had running water, if not always clean, and their children played in the shallow pools where the water still ran clear. But higher up, where the towers of the Iron Clan clawed at the sky, the air grew hotter, thinner. The tower rats, those who called the upper levels home, survived on recycled air and the flickering glow of neon advertisements. Their homes were cramped, their lives shorter. They scavenged the scraps of the lower districts, trading their labor for a few extra minutes of clean air. Some said the Iron Clan controlled the water flow, rationing it like a cruel god. Others whispered that the towers were rigged to collapse if the debts weren't paid. And then there were the Omega Tech labs, tucked away in the industrial sprawl beyond the trading post. Their lights never flickered. Their air never stank of ozone. The Omega Tech elite lived in sealed environments, their faces hidden behind polished masks, their voices transmitted through the hum of machinery. They were the ones who decided what was worth bartering, what was worth living for. The scavenger pushed his way through the crowd, his boots kicking up dust that swirled in the neon haze. The trading post was alive with the sound of haggling, the clink of metal, the occasional burst of laughter from a group of tower rats sharing a flask of something stronger than water. I spotted a man in a long coat, his face obscured by a high-tech visor, standing near the stall of a dealer selling pre-war circuit boards. "You the guy who's got the Desert Net booster?" the scavenger asked, his voice rough with years of shouting over the city's noise. The man in the visor turned, his eyes reflecting the glow of the nearby ads. "Depends," he said, his voice a low growl. "What's it worth to you?" The scavenger smirked. "A day's labor. No questions asked." The man in the visor considered, then nodded. "Meet me at the ramen stall at dusk. Bring your chip." The ramen stall was a relic, a wooden shack propped up on rusted stilts, its roof patched with scavenged metal. The owner, a weary old man with a face like cracked leather, ladled steaming broth into bowls for a line of customers whose faces were half hidden behind respirators. The smell of garlic and soy sauce cut through the city's usual stench, a small comfort in a world that had long since forgotten comfort. The scavenger found the man in the visor already waiting, a small device clutched in his gloved hand. It hummed softly, its surface covered in glowing symbols. "This will get you a direct line to the Desert Net," the man said, pressing the device into the scavenger's palm. "But it's not free. The Iron Clan don't like competition." The scavenger weighed the device in his hand. "What's the catch?" The man in the visor's smile was sharp enough to cut. "You don't ask questions. You just use it." By the time the scavenger made it back to the Techno Springs, the sun had dipped below the horizon and the city's neon glow had intensified. The Desert Net's signals flickered in the air like fireflies, and for the first time in years, the scavenger felt something like hope. But hope was a dangerous thing in Rustlight Ridge. The Iron Clan's enforcers were waiting for him at the edge of the district. 3 of them, their armor gleaming under the neon lights, their faces hidden behind featureless masks. The scavenger didn't need to see their eyes to know they were watching him. I'd seen their kind before, men who traded in fear and blood, who saw the city's desperation as a resource to be exploited. "You've got something that doesn't belong to you," the lead enforcer said, his voice a distorted growl. The scavenger tightened his grip on the desert net booster. It's mine now. The enforcer's hand twitched, and the air filled with the sound of power weapons charging. The scavenger knew he wasn't getting out of this alive, but maybe, just maybe, he'd take one of them with him. The explosion lit up the night, a brief, brilliant flare of light and heat. The enforcers stumbled back, their masks cracked, their armor scorched. The scavenger didn't wait to see if they'd recover. Air rang. The booster clutched tight in his hand, the desert net's signals guiding him through the maze of alleys and crumbling towers. He didn't know what he'd do with the booster. Maybe he'd sell it. Maybe he'd use it to find something better. Maybe he'd just disappear into the desert where the Iron Clan's reach didn't extend. But for now, A ran, and Rustlight Ridge burned behind him. That sounds like an incredible setting. I'll weave the atmosphere and details from the image into your story about Rustlight Ridge, focusing on the blend of high tech and traditional elements, the vibrancy of the city, and the unique culture of its people. Here's the continuation. As the sun falls behind the jagged peaks of the Obsidian Range, Rust Light Ridge ignites. The neon signs, pulsing pinks, electric blues, and sulphurous greens flare to life, their reflections dancing on the mist rising from the waterfalls that cascade down the city's skeletal frame. The air hums with the rhythmic clank of machinery, the sizzle of arc welding, and the distant chatter of 1,000 voices. This is no ordinary dusk, it is the city's heartbeat, a symphony of industry and ingenuity. The citizens of Rust Light Ridge do not yearn for distant horizons. They have carved their future from the bones of the earth itself. Beneath the city, geothermal vents roar, their heat harnessed to power the towering spires of Omega Tech and the flickering neon of the Iron Clan's forges. The ancient earth provides the warmth, and the iron hands of its people shape the future. One rivet, one circuit, one dream at a time. At the heart of the city, the trading post market thrives, a chaotic bazaar where the hum of holographic displays mingles with the scent of roasted green chile and the clatter of hand-forged tools. Eri, a merchant from the southern deserts, trades solar-powered lanterns for a crate of self-repairing nanofabric. A scavenger from the Iron Clan barters a relic of the old world, a rusted car door, for a crate of fresh green chile, its spicy aroma cutting through the metallic tang of the air. The market is a living organism, pulsing with barter, gossip, and the occasional burst of laughter that rises above the din. In the shadow of the NM Cyberpunk Tower, a group of street artists spray paint murals onto the rusted hulls of abandoned shipping containers. Their works tell stories of the city's past and dreams of its future, some in vibrant, almost violent strokes, others in the delicate, shimmering language of code. A child, no older than 10, watches in awe as an artist uses a spray can to paint a dragon coiled around a geothermal vent, its scales shimmering with embedded LEDs. Above the trading posts, rooftop garden glows under the artificial twilight. Clusters of bioluminescent plants sway in the breeze, their light casting eerie, shifting patterns on the faces of those who gather there. Among them, a woman in a patched up leather jacket tends to a garden of genetically modified peppers, their leaves edged with silver. These will grow anywhere, she says, plucking a ripe one and handing it to a passing scavenger. Even in the shadow of the city's hunger. The city's heartbeat is not just mechanical, it is also human. In the alleys between the towering structures, erupts a musician with a synth guitar made from scavenged parts, plays a haunting melody that echoes of the metal walls, while a drummer uses repurposed oil drums to create a rhythm that shakes the ground. Nearby, a group of elders share stories of the old world, their voices weaving through the cacophony like smoke. Rust Light Ridge is a contradiction, a city of contradictions. It is both beautiful and brutal, ancient and futuristic. Its people do not seek escape, they embrace the chaos, the heat, the clamor. They are the architects of their own fate, their hands blackened with soot and grease, their hearts alight with the fire of creation. And as the last sliver of sunlight vanishes behind the mountains, the city's neon glow intensifies, painting the sky in ways no natural sunset could ever achieve. This is Rust Light Ridge, a place where the past and future collide, and the present is a work of art.